Indeed, tuna and salmon possess opposing constitutional properties. Salmon is a food product that corresponds to the tender mind constitution, whereas tuna is a food product that corresponds to the tough mind constitution. So, when considering giving fish to a cat like the one we saw earlier, which is presumed to have a tender mind constitution, you should not give it tuna. Instead, you must give it salmon. If you keep feeding a catfish that's not suited for its constitution, it will definitely get sick, and its lifespan will also be significantly shortened. Oh, there's my friend. Hey, friend. Meow. Let's go see our friend. Let's go. We should definitely head over there now. Meow. Meow. Hey, friend. Would you please come over here? Meow. Meow. Did it rain a lot? Rough, huh? Have you been well? How are you two together? No territory fights? I'm going to sit there and now. Bye. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the cat video. One of the cats specifically falls into the air type, meaning it possesses a solar-based Taeyang constitution. The other cat is a water type, which corresponds to the Soyum constitution, and these two cats reside together. Both of those cats are considered to possess the tender mind constitution. When preparing pet food for cats and dogs, it's essential to combine tender ingredients for those with a tender mind constitution and tougher ingredients for those with a tough mind constitution to create appropriate pet food. When thinking of cats, fish often comes to mind, and among various fish, there's a specific type we'll discuss. This particular fish is. This is salmon. This particular salmon, well, this one here is labeled as Norwegian salmon, and this other one is marked as Patagonian salmon. Salmon. In Korea, people are quite fond of salmon, and a few years back you could find products where salmon was packed into cans like this one. However, nowadays it's virtually impossible to find salmon packaged in these kinds of cans. Now the fish that's in this can right here, this one is tuna, and this one over here is salmon. Yes, tuna and salmon possess inherently opposite constitutions. Salmon is a type of food that's suitable for the tender mind constitution, whereas tuna is a food that aligns with the tough mind constitution. For the cat you saw earlier, the one presumed to have a tender mind constitution, when you're going to feed it fish, you must not give it tuna, you should provide it with salmon instead. If you consistently feed a catfish that is of an opposing constitution, it will fall ill, and its life expectancy will significantly decrease. So why would canned salmon, once so popular, have completely vanished from the Korean market now? Well, if you consider it, Korea actually has a larger proportion of people with the tough mind constitution. That ratio is remarkably high. So because there's a larger population of people with the tough mind constitution, foods like tuna that are suitable for them have endured. However, I believe canned salmon disappeared because the population of those with the tender mind constitution is much smaller. So when individuals with a tough mind constitution eat this tuna, if you check the price, you'll discover that when purchased in large quantities, each can is just a bit more than $0.7 US. That's about 0.7 US dollars. If this can of tuna costs 1,001, then the salmon is roughly 10 times that price. This isn't canned, and there's a larger quantity, but individuals with a tender mind constitution would definitely need to pay more to consume this particular salmon. So when tough mind constitution individuals consume tuna, this specific tuna, this skipjack, is of the same lineage as katsuobushi. Therefore, it is beneficial to eat this. This is good for consumption, but it actually contains quite a significant amount of oil, more than one might expect. Since tuna is the main ingredient and a tough mind constitution food, it's beneficial for individuals with that constitution. Ideally, you should mix it with oil, also good for the tough mind constitution. However, if the oil contained is suited for a tender mind constitution, then it's crucial to thoroughly drain it and avoid consuming that oil. The reason I'm stressing the importance of this particular oil so much is because of what you see right here, my absolute favorite type of cup noodles. Now, even with these varieties of ramen, some are better suited for a tender mind constitution, while others are ideal for a tough mind constitution. For instance, when I'm making my selection, I always scrutinize the list of raw ingredients. And upon examining the ingredients here, you'll naturally find that it contains wheat flour. And ramen, you know, contains a tremendous amount of oil, doesn't it? That's because the noodles are deep fried in that oil. So regarding the oil, it explicitly states that it contains palm oil and also potato starch. Let's go ahead and open it. It comes with a soup powder packet like this. Let's take a look at what's inside here. Yes, you can see it all in here. As you can see here, these instant noodles are deep fried, meaning they absorb a substantial amount of oil. Thus, it's crucial to understand what kind of oil they contain. I did mention that I frequently eat cup noodles like these, and after finishing them in Korea, we typically separate the waste for recycling. Then you wash it, dry it thoroughly, and then place it in the recycling bin. However, you'll often find that the soup's oil adheres to the container, leaving a stubborn reddish oil stain that's difficult to remove, even when using a generous amount of detergent. That's because the oil has permeated it so much. It's definitive proof that it contains a significant amount of oil. And what's important is the seasoning packet that comes in these instant noodles. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for you. For me, I always make sure to check the ingredients of the soup powder before consuming it. So here, the soup powder for this ramen looks like this. When it comes to making the flavor of this soup, for example, if it's a broth made with seasoned pork, I personally don't consume it. I just simply do not eat it in those instances. That's because pork is a food that corresponds to the tough mind constitution. However, if the soup powder, instead of being made with pork seasoning, is made with beef broth, then I will consume it. I eat it because this beef is a food that's suitable for the tender mind constitution. And it's important to note that while kimchi is certainly a representative K food, I personally don't consume it myself. This is because while kimchi and even the cabbage itself may have their own constitutions, the red pepper powder and garlic seasonings often found in it are considered to be suitable for the tough mind constitution. So if the soup powder is too spicy, I don't choose it, but this one isn't that spicy. And since it's quite challenging to find Korean food that doesn't contain garlic, I typically choose to consume it even if only a small amount is present. But the soup powder is important, and as I mentioned earlier, the oil used to fry the ramen noodles is also incredibly important. So it's beneficial to be aware of what kind of oil is used. If that particular oil doesn't agree with you, you could simply consume only the noodles, or even boil them briefly to help remove the oil before eating them. You discard that water and then add the soup powder to cook and eat it. Rises to the top, then discard that water and add the soup powder to the broth to cook, which would be a good idea. This is because we consume more oil than we think. This is the oil I've been consuming, which is extracted from edamame, the beans frequently consumed in Japan. Yes, edamame are indeed soybeans. So I'm currently consuming the oil produced from this. Based on what I consume, I'm sure you can infer what my specific constitution is, can't you? Well, there's also the instance where oil is present, for example, when preserving fish in cans as a food product. In some of these cases, oil is incorporated into the canning process. And then, in cases where a significant amount of oil is consumed, especially within our health supplements, it's also a factor. And whether it's for omega-3 or even making vitamin D, if you look at it closely, the ingredient that makes up the largest part of it is oil. And also, in these health supplements like this vitamin D, the highest percentage of what's inside, 97% of it, is oil. So, since a tender mind constitution needs to consume tender oil and a tough mind constitution needs to consume tough oil, it's essential to understand what kind of oil this actually is. So, for something like vitamin D, the raw material from which the vitamin D is extracted is crucial. And the next thing you absolutely need to check is the oil. If it's omega-3, you need to know if the omega-3 is extracted from mackerel, or from salmon, or from skipjack, which is a type of tuna. Knowing this is very important. You can discern if it's a tender or tough constitution fish, correct? And since omega-3 is extracted and 97% of this is then filled with oil, it is important to know and understand what type of oil has been included before consuming it. Therefore, for instance, this here is a can of tuna. Tuna, you know, it's tuna, of course. However, as I previously stated, if you feed tuna to a dog or cat with a tender mind constitution, it can potentially lead to sickness or even a shortened lifespan. In the same way, when manufacturing pet food, like this current product designed to boost immunity, ingredients are added for that purpose. Pet food with red ginseng added, but red ginseng also has its own constitution, doesn't it? Red ginseng is a processed product made with various ingredients. Its original base ingredient is ginseng, and even ginseng itself has its own unique constitution or bodily type. So if it doesn't align with their constitution, for example, if you feed a pet with a tough mind constitution a lot of pet food that contains red ginseng, then, instead of improving health, it could actually cause illness and significantly shorten their lifespan. This is precisely why it's crucial that the pet food matches their specific constitution, such as a tender mind constitution needing food suited for it. For a tender mind constitution, you mix ingredients that are suitable for their constitution, and for a tough mind constitution, you mix ingredients that are right for their constitution. This approach can help prevent diseases, promote overall health, and ultimately extend their lifespan. Previously, I discussed rice, which is a staple food worldwide, and I previously discussed wheat, and among rice products, I introduced this K-food instant rice. However, just because it's mixed grain rice doesn't automatically mean it's unsuitable. I explained that it's perfectly fine if you incorporate grains that specifically align with your own constitution. For instance, this is mixed grain rice. So let's take a look at what grains are in this mix, shall we? This contains black rice, glutinous rice, and then there's also what's known as non-glutinous rice. Regular rice is also included here, and when mixed, it's generally fine as it suits all four constitutions. However, black rice and sweet rice have specific constitutional properties. Therefore, you should consume food according to your specific constitution. And this particular one is for a tough mind constitution member within our Gawan family. So this is the food that the tough mind constitution member eats. So you could accurately describe this as a mixed grain rice that is perfectly suitable for the tough mind constitution. Well, your bodily constitution, as I've mentioned before, is something that's genetically inherited. It is inherited just like a blood type passed down from one of your parents. And this right here, this is a Korean banknote. Also, this is a banknote that features figures who are highly revered as great historical people in Korea. If you look closely, one person is a woman and the other is a man. They are indeed family. This individual here is the mother, and this gentleman is her son. This person's name is Shin Saim-dang, but her original name was Shin In-seon. Shin In-seon, whose pen name was Saimdang, is consequently referred to as Shin Saimdang. This person, on the other hand, has the pen name Yulgok. His name is Yiwai, which is why he is known as Yulgok Yiwai. I previously mentioned that one's constitution, similar to blood type, is inherited from one of their parents. Given this, do you think this son inherited his mother's constitution or his father's? I mentioned earlier that if we have actual photos of these people, we can determine their constitution from them, right? Unfortunately, back in the old days, there were no photographs. So we had to rely on portraits like this for an idea of their appearance, to imagine what they looked like and recognize their faces. In fact, both of these individuals were painted by the same artist. The mother and the son. But I said that the artist's own constitution is reflected in their paintings, didn't I? So, let's say someone with a tender constitution is painted by an artist with a tough constitution. We'll be drawn to look tough. And what if the model has a tough constitution but the artist has a tender constitution? Then they'll be drawn with a tender constitution. That's because, as the saying goes, we only see what we want to see. Or rather, we perceive others through our own individual style. This is the principle that is at work here. The very constitution of the artist who created this drawing is reflected within the artwork itself. Therefore, we can find it in his works. So, because the original artist who painted these portraits had the exact same constitution as Yulgok Yiphame, he also painted his mother with the identical constitution. So, even though in this painting her facial features are depicted as if she has a tender Taeyangin constitution, it's actually quite impossible to believe that this is how she truly looked in reality. Because Shin Saimdang is categorized as having a tender Seomin constitution, as indicated in the research from our Jojun Institute for Human Types, she must therefore possess facial characteristics that align more closely with the Seomin type. In that particular case, he must have inherited his constitution from his father rather than from his mother, don't you think? But then, why isn't his father featured on the banknote? And why is only his mother on it? In Korean, there's a saying, it's all in destiny. This means you live according to your birth, fate, or destiny, which is called it's all in one's destiny. However, in our Sasan constitutional medicine, we believe that constitution is above destiny and character is above constitution. So, your constitution is a way to overcome your destiny, and above constitution is character. An individual whose image is featured on Korean banknotes or coins would likely be a person of outstanding character. It seems that his mother's character was perhaps even more exceptional than his father's, and that is why she is the one depicted on this banknote. Well, it seems I've become a model now, haven't I? Since I've unveiled my face to all of you, you can certainly try to figure out what my specific constitution might be, can't you? Well, to really explain, I suppose I should first clarify which of my parents I inherited my constitution from. This here is a picture of my mother right now. As for my mother, I mean. She passed away very early when I was a baby, so I never knew her face, and there were no photos left. It wasn't until a few years ago that I was finally able to find this picture of her. This photo of my mother was restored to look like a funeral portrait. I inherited my constitution from her, you see. So, the shape of my mother's face and my own are somewhat more alike, as you can see. When people share the same constitution, their facial features, personalities, appearances, and even their voices tend to be alike. The voice is actually a crucial element in constitutional diagnosis. I can't recall my mother's voice at all, since she passed when I was a tiny baby, so I have no idea what it sounded like. Furthermore, your voice is an inherent characteristic of your constitution. If you watch the cat video from earlier, you'll see the method for identifying a cat's constitution is the same. There's the sound a cat makes when it meows, right? Well, you can also determine its constitution by that voice. And certainly, just like with humans, a cat's constitution can be identified by observing its facial features. Specifically, their eyes hold a very important clue that can help us determine their constitution. In the Korean language, we have a saying that goes, the eyes are the window to the soul. Therefore, if you look closely at the cat's face in that cat video, you'll be able to understand why its constitution is presumed to be a tender one. Now I'm going to set this down, and in Korean it says lean meat, dongwon tuna here on the packaging. And if you look closely here, you'll see the Korean flag symbol, indicating it's the representative tuna of South Korea. Our dele, whose original name is Gawa, belongs to a family that possesses a tough constitution. This particular food is highly favored by individuals of that constitution. Now, shall we take a closer look at the ingredients of this product? The ingredients are listed here, 79% skipjack tuna, and it explicitly states that it's sourced from the open sea. It also mentions canola oil, imported from countries like Canada, Australia, and Italy, along with domestic vegetable juices, specifically onion and carrot. So, there's this type of tuna, and the other one I just presented, and they both invariably have oil added to them. They add oil to the can for easier storage and preservation. I previously mentioned that there are various types of oils used, and the oil found in this specific tuna is actually not suitable for those with a tough constitution, therefore people with a tough constitution.
기름들은 사실은 터프마인드 체질에 해당하는 기름이 아니어가지고 이제 터프마인드 체질이
So when a person with this specific constitution eats these types of canned tuna, they should really drain out a lot of the oil before consumption. There's actually quite a bit of oil present here. Some of it is suited for the tender constitution, and some for the tough constitution. I wish they had used oil specifically intended for the tough constitution in this particular product. That's a minor disappointment. And now, regarding the ingredients of this dongwon tuna, which I mentioned earlier. And among the vegetables, there's this particular one. It's an ingredient that is greatly beneficial for those with a tough constitution. So I believe that including this was an excellent decision. Now, some foods have very strong properties. I've mentioned before that for the right constitution, they can be like medicine, but for the opposite constitution, they can be like poison. So, for this one, I pointed to my fingers, mentioning yin, yang, and the 5 elements. Which category do you think this food belongs to? Among liver, heart, spleen, lungs, kidneys, gallbladder, small intestine, stomach, large intestine, and bladder? While not every food might be exclusively categorized into a single group, this particular carrot appears to be assigned to the liver and gallbladder systems. You'll notice here that individuals with a tender constitution often have a weaker liver, which is why I've symbolically worn gold to strengthen it. Conversely, those with a tough constitution tend to have an overactive liver. Because it's an excess condition, I'm symbolically wearing a silver ring to help calm the liver. This particular food is truly exceptional for counteracting the overactive liver, often found in those with a tough constitution. So, I can tell you that this food is like a tonic, especially beneficial for the tough constitution. What suits a tough constitution is actually detrimental to a tender constitution. Therefore, if someone with a tender constitution consumes this type of food for an extended period, they could develop illnesses and potentially experience a shortened lifespan. Just as I said, it's a pity that oils for different constitutions are mixed. The same principle applies here. Ingredients for a tender constitution should only be blended with other tender ingredients, and those for a tough constitution with other tough ingredients. A prime example of where this is not followed is in pet food. That's why you can't feed your pet the same food for long. You're often forced to keep switching it up. This is primarily because most pet foods don't consistently mix tough ingredients with other tough ingredients or tender with tender ones. So, if you know that, and if foods were mixed with only tender for tender types and tough for tough types, they would be much more beneficial for the consumer. Yes, on this brochure right here, it explicitly states a bountiful chuseok hangawi. If you look here, hangawi is written as chuseok in Chinese characters. It's the biggest traditional holiday in Korea, our country. Korea essentially has two major traditional holidays, Seolal and Chuseok. Both holidays are based on the lunar calendar, and Chuseok, which is the 15th of August on the lunar calendar, is moved back a little this year because of a leap month. So on the solar calendar, it will be October 6th, which is Hangawi. In English, it is currently written as Korean Thanksgiving Day. So it has that concept of Thanksgiving, you know what I mean? During this time of giving thanks for the harvest, people exchange gifts, and some families prepare a ceremonial table. So it's a period where food gifts are very popular. This brochure was specifically created for that purpose, promoting food items as gifts. For the year 2025, these are some of the popular gift ideas featured in the brochure. These are gift packages made from the most popular food items. Do you happen to know which food product is the most prevalent among them? Yes, beef was the most common. I skimmed through it earlier. And among the various types of beef, Korean beef is particularly delicious, so there are many products associated with it. And then if you look over here, these are pears. Pears and apples are also indeed very popular ingredients, you see. Pears and apples as well as beef are traditionally significant ingredients that are often placed on the Korean ancestral rite table, making them highly popular. Among health-promoting food products, there are those related to ginseng, for example. Items such as ginseng and honey are extremely popular and frequently sought after. Looking through here, yes, it's all beef. And among the fruits, as I mentioned, pears and apples are traditional Korean fruits, so there are many of those. Additionally, among the fruits introduced from Western countries, there are options such as mango and even avocado, both commonly available. We also have dragon fruit, kiwi, and melon. And shine muscat grapes, which are now being cultivated in Korea, are available here as well. And if you look here, seaweed is another specialty product that represents Korea. So there's seaweed too. Next, we dry these persimmons to create delicious dried persimmon. There are gift sets that include dried persimmons, and then you have the nut assortments, you know. There are gift sets that consist of various nuts, and this particular one here is from a food company that is truly representative of Korea. Companies such as CJ, Dongwon, or Chungjungone often package their products in these types of sets. The reason I'm showing you this particular one is that if you observe closely, you'll likely notice this Dongwon gift set contains a substantial amount of Dongwon tuna.
이 동원 참치가 많이 들어있는 거가 아마 보이실 거예요. 그리고
And another essential item that's consistently present is this type of oil.
또 여기
Looking at the CJ product here, it appears to be primarily composed of spam. And similarly, in the Chungjungone item, this oil is also an ever-present component.
기름이 이제 빠지지 않아요.
So CJ is well known for its spam, and Dongwon promotes Dongwon tuna as its representative product. If you observe carefully, you'll notice that oil is a common ingredient in all these items, and there's a unique characteristic regarding that oil. So when oils are included in gift sets, they typically feature more expensive varieties, those that are currently trending and highly favored across Korea. And as you'll observe here, canola oil is by far the most abundant, truly signifying the prevailing preference. And the cooking oil produced by Dongwon has a specific name. If you look here, the oil they named was healthy cooking oil. When I checked what raw ingredients were included, I found that it contained canola oil and then sunflower oil, specifically sunflower seed oil. In the past, soybean oil used to be a prominent ingredient, but now, because soybean oil is relatively more budget-friendly, the oils found in these gift sets are typically the more expensive kind. And when you buy them individually, I got this particular one for around 3,000 Korean won, which is a little over $2. If you purchase these in larger quantities, the individual cost significantly decreases, making them much more affordable. However, assuming one item costs around 3,000 won, you will notice prices structured to include cooking oil as part of the complete package. Well then, oil is really important, and there's oil that suits a tender constitution and oil that suits a tough constitution. As you can see from the contrasting colors of these rings, the tender and tough constitutions have internal functions that are opposing. Therefore, the foods that are suitable for each of them are inevitably going to be completely different. Earlier, I mentioned that the oil found within this Dongwon gift package is a mix of canola oil and sunflower seed oil. Now, when it comes to intuitively recognizing whether someone possesses a tender constitution or a tough constitution, a very helpful hint can be this. A tough constitution, by definition, implies. In terms of personality, it means stubborn, and it also has a bit of a rough feel to it, right? They often present with an appearance that is perceived as more robust and formidable. So, would sunflower oil fall under the tender oil category or the tough oil category? I previously mentioned that the most popular fruits are indeed pears and apples. These specific fruits are traditionally placed on Korean ancestral offering tables, and just by their elegant and beautiful appearance, you can get a strong sense of whether they are for a tender or tough constitution.
There are many instances where fruits with a more delicate or refined appearance often fall into the category category of food suitable for the tender mind body type, whereas those that are perceived as being quite robust or coarser in their appearance are frequently fruits that align well with the tough mind body type. If you're giving this type of fish to a tough body type, then you should certainly be giving this type of fish to a tender body type. If you look closely here, you'll see this one is labeled Norway Super Fresh Salmon, and then this one here says Patagonia Fresh Salmon, so it's salmon. So as I mentioned earlier, salmon is considered a food for the tender mind body type, while tuna is classified as a food for the tough mind body type. Given that both my companion dog and I belong to the tender mind body type, consuming tuna would be detrimental to our health. And since this is for the tender mind body type, consuming it would be advantageous. So in the video clip I showed you previously, there was cat number 1 and cat number 2, wasn't there? I believe that cat number 1 shares a very similar body constitution to my companion dog. Then you should also give this very same fish to this particular cat over here as well. If you feed this specific fish, its life will be cut short, and it will likely contract illnesses. I mentioned that body constitutions are inherited, much like blood types, and are passed down from one parent. Therefore, whether it's our companion dog or these cats, who are presumed to have a tender mind body type, they would have certainly inherited their body constitution from one of their parents. Yes, in Korean proverbs there's a saying, leaving the fish store to the cat. That's exactly the kind of proverb we have. In English, there's a similar expression to that, asking a wolf to look after sheep, which means entrusting something vulnerable to someone inherently dangerous or untrustworthy. However, cats are animals that have evolved to allow all 4 body constitutions to survive and thrive. Just as it is with our beloved companion dogs, I also mentioned previously that some animals are left with only a single body constitution. So that's the cat, and earlier I used the wolf and the sheep as examples. What do you suppose the body constitution of a wolf would be then? And the sheep, what body type could it be? Tender mind or tough mind? As I was watching this video and talking, my attention was drawn to this particular detail. Among the tender mind body types, we have the air type constitution, which corresponds to the sun type. This cat appears to have that sun type body constitution, and a very prominent characteristic that's noticeable about it is how incredibly affectionate it is, just like this. It can be said to be very charming, and having a lot of charisma is a characteristic of that constitution. Inductors. Let me give you an example of how to intuitively tell if something is a tender or tough body constitution. Alright, so here we have 2 distinct categories of animals. This one is labeled butterfly, and this one is labeled spider. One represents a tender mind body type, and the other a tough mind body type. Can you intuitively grasp the distinction? That's how you differentiate them. Next, one of these is labeled shark, and the other dolphin. So we have a dolphin and a shark, don't we? Intuitively, which one do you think embodies the tender mind body type? And which one seems like the tough mind body type? You should be getting a feel for which is which now. This part shouldn't be too hard. Now you should instinctively grasp that their personalities are quite distinct, even opposite, just by observing them. And then there's that. As I previously mentioned, it's like asking a wolf to look after a flock of sheep. Here we have wolf and sheep, which I mentioned in the context of leaving the fish store to the cat. When you look at these two, you immediately notice. Which is the tender type and which is the tough mind type? Yes, exactly. Once you start to get a feel for these examples, you'll intuitively understand the criteria that differentiate between a tender and a tough constitution, and you'll grasp the nuances of how they are categorized. Seeing it in pictures makes it more intuitive and understandable, doesn't it? Now you can feel which ones are delicate and elegant, and which ones look a bit rough. Then you'll discern which aligns with the tender mind body type, and which one corresponds to the tough mind body type. Do you wish to know more in depth? Then you can visit the Chojun-hee's 4 Human Types Research Institute website. Once there, click the search button and input the name of an animal or food ingredient. If the information is publicly available, relevant results will appear that you can use as a helpful reference. Yes, all the items that I have listed here on this side are those that correspond to the tender mind body type. And this side corresponds to the tough mind body type. Currently, the presidents of Korea and the United States are in a meeting engaging in discussions. If I were to discuss the US president's constitution type, he would certainly be classified under the tough mind body type. So when considering these body types, it's quite distinct that they're divided as such. And the specific K-food that I want to document and record right now is none other than this Dongwon tuna. So as you can see, I've got this Dongwon tuna picture right here that I've printed out. Now, I want to place a symbol in front of it, and this one here represents the tender body constitution. This is called a gwai. There are 4 gwai here now, and these also represent different body constitutions. This stick is called a hyo. So this long stick here represents yang, and these 2 short sticks originate from yin. So here we have the gwai corresponding to the tough mind body type. This gwai is depicted using these 3 hyo. I'll sketch it like so. This specific body constitution, the one illustrated here, is indeed the fire type constitution, which is also identified as the so-yang type. And this one here underneath represents the earth type constitution, which is also the taeyong type. So since this perfectly aligns with Dongwon tuna, I will go ahead and place it right here, signifying its corresponding match. I'm cutting out the wick. Yes, this is the otogi bap cell from last time, rice mi. Since we'll be using the alphabet for this particular one is for R. And this time it's tuna, since tuna starts with T. Then I will take a fresh piece of fabric, about the size of 2 A4 papers put together, and then place this on top of it to start. I'll embroider. In order to properly recycle this misprinted paper that came out incorrectly, I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces. So I'm going to attach it right here on top of the final letter. To indicate the body constitution, I will draw a specific shape here. By joining this triangle with this other element, it will form a diamond-like figure. Then I will draw a bar underneath it to complete the symbol. So the diamond is now attached to it, and for the earth type constitution, as it needs a bar at the bottom, I will proceed to add that specific mark. Okay, the design is now complete. Alright, as I mentioned once more, this gwai here is what indicates the body constitution. And the one at the top, with 2 short bars, then 1 long bar, and then 2 short bars, represents the so-yang constitution, which corresponds to the fire type. That's the symbol for it. We refer to it as a gwai. This specific bar, which is 1, 2, 3 lines, is called a hyo. As for the one at the bottom, this short bar isn't connected. It's broken in the middle, indicating a different type. So for this one, I drew 6 short heel, and the name of this body constitution is the Tai-Yum body constitution. And when we discuss it in terms of the 4 ancient Greek elements, we can classify it as the earth type constitution, or an earth type.